Organizations love to throw around their total addressable market because it's a big number and look who all the people we can reach. But the truth is that the total addressable market, or the TAM, doesn't matter as much as your relevant market. And your total relevant market is about who actually fits your ICP now, today, and who is in market for your solution.
Hi, and welcome to tomorrow's best practices today. As always, I'm your host, Clark Newby, and today we're joined by Monica Wright. Now, Monica was previously director of global demand generation at StreamSets, which was acquired by IBM. Since that time, she's founded Wanjo Consulting for go-to-market strategy, which obviously we're going to dig in a lot. And she's also just launching her Signals Plus Strategy newsletter. So she's got her finger on the pulse. She's seen a lot of things, has great insights to share from both inside and outside organizations. But Monica, thanks so much for taking the time to join us today on the pod.
My pleasure entirely. I'm a big retail fan.
Fantastic. Great to hear. Well, so you know, and I know, right, that go-to-market day, sales, marketing, the way people are buying, all of it is extremely, it's data focused, right? It's by the numbers, right? Yeah. We're always trying to figure out how to measure, how to optimize. So, and we also know things are changing probably as rapidly on all those counts as probably since the dot-com boom, maybe even worse than that for those of us that can remember the dot-com boom. Where do you think, and what you're seeing today, what you've lived, where do you think go-to-market leaders are maybe getting it wrong on the numbers that they're looking at or the way they're looking at it? Or where would you coach folks to starting from the ground up, thinking about what they're measuring and how they're going about optimizing their go-to-market chain?
Yeah, so I think the very first element that, even in conversations that I have or that I've seen firsthand, is that most go-to-market teams, meaning all of it, like marketing, sales, customer success, even product.
And that's a good point right there. I'm sorry to jump right in.
It's not
but yeah,
that's my point.
There's so many. Right. It's not just like, sales and marketing at it again. Right.
Yeah.
There's a lot of folks that need to be involved. So anyway, I'll step back out. But yeah, let's talk to us about that.
So you've got marketing measuring success one way, and sometimes it's vanity metrics. We can put those aside. And then sales is measuring it another way while qualifying, if you will, whatever marketing's doing. And customer success is off doing their own thing. And there isn't that foundational alignment. You're just building these motions in sand that are just going to get washed away. And so I think a lot of times, when I say leadership teams, I mean, like even mostly on the executive level, they just don't have true buy-in organizationally on the framework, and all of these departments and divisions are operating in silos. And so that causes a lot of problems. Organizations love to throw around their total addressable market because it's a big number and look who all the people we can reach. But the truth is that the total addressable market, or the TAM, doesn't matter as much as your relevant market. And your total relevant market is about who actually fits your ICP now, today, and who is in market for your solution. So even if you had that ICP, ideal customer profile, within your total addressable market, you even drill even further, you're going to look at your total relevant market. And that's who's in the market today. And that is hard. It really is hard. It involves a lot of data, a lot of collaboration, a lot of alignment in who that TRM is, in what kind of go-to-market motions you're actually going to execute. I would also think that another area that go to market sometimes is missing is the spending versus revenue ratio. So there's that metric really, I mean, and I'm just as guilty about it, but it's sometimes really hard to get all that data, right?
Yeah.
So, but thinking about it, what percentage of your revenue actually comes from your go to market activities versus pouring money into those programs, in that you can't draw a direct revenue impact. And that can be a problem, but then you're talking about brand, so that's a whole other thing. But not seeing, so imagine if you see your segments, you know what revenue those segments are. Okay, so what are your go-to-market motions for those segments to drive that revenue?
So those are great. Yeah. So those kind of those tenets, 3 or 4 tenets that you just rattle off. There's worlds in each one of them, right?
Yeah,
There's
I
a
know. There's so many.
lot to
Yeah,
get to think about the how in today's landscape. So let's walk through those a little bit. So
sure.
I think you're absolutely right. It all starts with alignment to of goals, alignment to the way our language, alignment all the way to the top. So I really like the distinction that you made between, look, we kind of get funding on total addressable market. we make we make revenue plans probably on relevant market, who's in
Yep.
market.
Yep.
So talk to us a little bit about that difference between kind of setting your ICP and saying like, look how many there are, and then figuring out how to predictively figure out when they're market versus a framework that's focused on relevant market and how you get there.
Yeah. So, um, to get that ICP, I mean, that is an exercise for sure, right? So what you're trying to do is really understand your current audience, or forgive me, not audience, but current customer lists, and understanding what is pushing them in order to purchase your product, right? I mean, it's about taking like full ownership on who's buying what, when, and how, right? And so investing in those tools that can really give you a sense of, all right, here are our current customers, here are some other potential accounts that fit into that profile, and then really kind of figure out what that deal story is, like what is driving the engagement to sale here. And sometimes you're going to have to embrace some of that dark social data,
Mm-hmm.
manually collecting it on LinkedIn and things to really get a sense of who is responding to what and where. And getting to that ICP, it just needs alignment. It's like it's so important because sales has one definition of what their ideal customer is because they're going to sell to the easiest thing on that's available to them, where marketing is, has a lot more constraints around it. Customer success is working with whoever actually bought. So you actually have these 3 different versions of reality, which is killing efficiency and also killing that kind of momentum. So needing to have all 3 aligned, all 3 areas or responsibilities aligned on who that ICP is, that's what's really going to matter. And that involves, like I said, the deal story, understanding, some of the actual conversations that are happening from the sales point of view, understanding what the current messaging is. And so all of that really just needs to work together.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and where have you seen it? And to your point, everyone has a little bit, maybe a largely different take, but at least a little bit different take on, or different motivations of how they're going to define any of this, but certainly ICP. Like you
Yeah.
say, we got some sales plays running. They're running great. What? Just give me, 3 times as many of these. We'll kill the
Right.
number, right? Product comes. We've got this new, this new feature or something like we have to get 25 of these out in the world.
Yeah.
this is, a big part of the ecosystem play that we're making. It's there's a lot of different things that kind of lean on that ICP. Is this
Yeah.
something that, where have you seen it work best? Because a lot of times I think you're right. I think that alignment obviously needs to run all the way up to the CEO, even the board being on
Yeah.
board with all this stuff. But
Yeah.
they often don't have their fingers in enough of it to really tell
Yeah.
which is which and how to balance it.
Yeah.
Have you seen good dynamics, or have you seen good processes to get to that alignment?
It's all about the data and what's performing. I mean, there's this pretty well known, and if it's not well known, that's okay too, about HubSpot, where they were, early on, like early 2000s, when they first launched, they were really focused on those small to mid-sized businesses, giving them all the tools for them to be set up efficiently for SEO and blogging and social media, et cetera. But what they really realized, also because they were building out this CRM, what was happening there. And so you kind of see, right, you've got this small business, high churn subscription model for go-to-market that, it requires a lot of volume, versus marketing to marketers who the CRM, it's a longer term commitment, longer term value, higher value as well. And they really needed to make a decision, right? It was easy to do the marketer, the small business, and harder to do in the marketers. But it's essentially just the math. You do the segmentation, how long did it take to come to value? How long, what's the churn rate? What is the velocity for it to close? And this is where, like I said, customer success is important in these conversations, right?
Too
Sales
often left out, right?
conversations.
And like your ultimate point was it's about time to value, even making,
Yeah,
whether we're getting
exactly.
alignment, whether we're making these
Yeah,
plans, making these decisions, and
yeah, yeah.
who is sitting with the customers, but
Right.
customer success. Yeah.
Right, right. And so that example of HubSpot is just a quintessential one. I mean, they broke it out. They're like, okay, we're trying to be everything to everybody. We can't do that. We can't scale the way that we need to scale. And so they decided to go towards the CRM model, which makes a lot of sense. They were on the forefront of this notion of inbound marketing.
Yep.
Marketo was a beast. Salesforce was on the cusp. So there was it was a lot of activity. They were right at the right time.
Yeah, for sure. What a time. It just now I've got customer success in my head a little bit too,
Okay.
because I think a lot of times, even on this podcast, we talk about sales and marketing, and they'll get scrappy with each other, or communicating up to the board, communicating up to the CEO. But again, I think too often customer success isn't really in our thoughts, in our equation, maybe as often enough, because so many in a SaaS world, and in a whatever the hell world we're headed into, post SaaS, agentic driven, retention is going to be key, which means license renewals, or depending on how we price the stuff, but retaining and building your customer base is going to be the key. And so how do you, too often I think still that's treated as a handoff to customer success. And then when we come around to do the number, it's like, well, how many renewals do we have? Like, I don't know, go talk to customer success. And that's the first time they've talked in months or something, right?
Yeah. And that drives me bananas, because customer success teams, like you said, were getting stuck owning renewals all by themselves on an island. Meanwhile, the rest of the team has moved on to new logos, and it feels to me backwards from a company point of view. Retention should be everybody's job, full stop, right? So product needs to build for retention. I want to use a product. I don't want to go switching products around. I want to use one that I love and know, and because once I get to know it, it's super efficient. Marketing needs to nurture for retention, right? Sales needs to set proper expectations that leads to retention. And ultimately, RevOps and all the teams that track and forecast, retention's where it's at, that NRR metric, understanding what your renewal rate's like. If you're below 100, that's bad. You're already lost.
Yeah.
Why are we not having a product that people want to maintain and keep? And so what are the problems? And they could
Yeah.
be feature driven, it could be price, it could be, a whole host of things. But yeah, I mean, that's I think personally, retention should be everybody's job because that is essentially trying to keep people happy and back.
Well, retention is the business, right? I
Yeah,
mean, getting the chance to be retained, meaning
yeah,
selling them, quote unquote, bringing them on board in the first place. But
yeah,
certainly in a SaaS world, right? You don't have a business if folks aren't happy and continuing. And you don't frankly have a solution if you're not magnetically attracting people to
no,
get over that hump, like you say, of switching off
no.
something they're familiar with. The old chestnut is always, it needs to be 10 times better, 10 times faster, 10 times something to get somebody to switch. Maybe it's even more now because there are so many choices. Maybe it's less. I don't know. But if you can't get folks over that hump and retain them and make them part of your universe, your ecosystem, you don't
Yeah,
have a business, right?
no, no. And no, and like how do you it's you know I know operators like myself. I mean, I do strategic work as well as hands-on work, especially in the ops world and demand, people like, oh, which tools do you use? Oh, you're a Marketo shop, or you're a HubSpot shop, or you're a demand-based shop, or you use 6 Sense. All of a sudden, your credentials become part of these
Yep.
tools, right? And so and businesses want that. They want these experiences because they don't want to like go and reinvest in all these things, when it comes to operating things.
Like, where do you see the right place for AI to kind of sit next to us in run and go to market?
Yeah, well, I think the mantra we need to remember is that the tools serve us, not vice versa, right? So we need to remember that AI is the tool. We still need to know what problems we're solving. We need to really understand the outcome we want. Um, we need to still be able to tell a data story. I mean, you could probably do that with AI, and it could process that information a lot faster than I can, definitely. But it can't bring like experience and human connection and reading the room,
Yeah.
it doesn't have that dynamic, especially when it comes to just relationships within the organization or with customers or with anybody for that matter. Repetitive tasks, yeah. Automation, sure. But when it's about, does this brand message resonate? Well, yeah, we could probably build an LLM, of a customer, of a fake AI customer, and pressure test brand messaging or pressure test customer interactions. But I still think everybody wants to build a relationship, with each other, from
Yeah.
customers to an organization. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think it's going to be interesting to see how the frontier sort of moves on, because we think of it as functions, like we're just listing some functions. Well, maybe I could do this, I could do that, and I'm the same way.
Yeah.
But maybe it's not just about the functions, but how for each function, what the proportion or what the role looks like, right? Because you're going to want to optimize. You want to make efficient everything that you can,
Right.
and that's not a means to an. And that's not the end. The end is make it efficient so that
Yeah.
you can move faster, be smarter,
Right.
solve the right problems,
Right.
identify the problems,
Right.
learn from what you've solved, listen
Right.
to your customers,
Yeah.
etc. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. That's exactly it. That's it.
We figured it out. It's
I
all
think
right.
so. You know, yeah, you can write me a check now.
All right, everybody. This is the one. She's figured it out. We're
Yeah.
done. Turn out the
All
lights.
done. All done.
All right. So as I said, we're in late 2025. It's a time of year where we're all sort of like, oh, we're trying to get stuff wrapped up. Oh my God, 2026 is still coming. Even while we're waiting for some things to sort out in the labor market, in
I know.
in the financial markets, etc. But we're looking toward 2026, and so have to ask you what are you looking at in 2026 to kind of be front of mind,
Yeah.
as because it's not in some ways it's an artificial marker because January isn't that different than December in the world, but it's an opportunity for us all to be thinking this way and reset. Yeah, what's at the front of your mind?
I really think now we're going, the last 5, 10 years or so, we've just been so obsessive about metrics, performance, tactics, attribution models, coverage ratios, conversion rates, all that stuff, right?
Yeah,
And those
yeah.
things are important, but we lost our sense of creativity, brand, and that notion of emotional connection with others,
Not into the AI slop. What is that?
yeah, I say, yeah, so creativity will be that differentiator. I really think, I think that creativity will be the differentiator. I was
Yeah, I
at
don't.
at an
Go
event
ahead.
not too long ago in Boston,
Uh-huh.
and that really drove it home for me. It was, completely off the record, a salon like type of event, and it was all, a lot of creators, and um they're onto something. It's onto something. I stepped out of my comfort level of very data driven organizations and saw what was going on there. And that's really where the differentiator is going to come, that messaging, going old school,
Yeah. Well, I
Yeah.
think in a world where, pretty soon some part of the market is going to be AI agents buying from AI agents, right? I mean, that's where this is headed.
No.
Ultimately at the base level, you're automating all this stuff. So if you're not if you're not driving these vehicles in the right direction,
Yeah.
they're never gonna
Yeah.
be at the same place at the same time. And
Yeah.
that is something, at least for the foreseeable, right?
Yeah.
Is because the AI it only knows what it's been taught, right?
Yeah. That's right.
Um, and so, but it can tell you with great confidence what it knows.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
that's the dangerous combination, right? And so you need
Right.
not, the human intervention, but also, people buying from people really being able to communicate. I don't know if you saw recently, Apple TV redid its logo. Did you see the story on
Yes.
this?
It's in
Yeah.
rainbow color now. I was wondering
It's
what
in
was happening.
rainbow color and it's all created in practical effects. It's all like
Yeah.
in camera physical models.
Yeah.
And the piece I saw earlier today was comparing that to how Coca-Cola, right? They
Yeah.
always have the polar bears every Christmas. And now
Yeah.
their commercials are getting creepier and creepier because
Right.
they're using AI and nothing's lining up. And it's kind of like you don't really recognize it at first why you're kind of a little bit, well, this is making it feel off. But anyway, I think that's a generative example.
Yeah.
We've talked a little bit more about kind of strategic decision making. But again, I don't know that it's function by function to be the way to be thinking about these things. But what is the critical human element in each of these functions that needs to
Well, let
be
me,
be
yeah,
tuned?
let me just bring up that Apple TV logo, because
Yeah.
when I first saw it, I was like, oh, did those colors match up the colors of my iMacs that I had? You know, that was the first thing I thought of, like my old school
Yeah.
Mac. And
The gumdrop IMAX.
yes,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and that brand consistency, sure, I do marketing and all this, but that's where my brain went, right? That was like a consistent brand presentation from 15 years ago
Yeah.
or whenever it
Yeah.
was. It was even longer, it's
It's
20.
part of your relationship with that brand,
Well, brand,
right? Yeah.
right. It was an emotional connection. And that differentiates Apple TV from watching Netflix, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. That's great. That's
Yeah.
great. Gosh. All right. So many great
Oh,
insights,
so
Monica.
many good things to talk about.
So let's okay. So you've got a new newsletter. Let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah.
What talk to
I'm
us about
just
Signals Plus Strategy, what it is, where folks can find it, when, what's up with that?
Yeah, sure. I just launched it on Substack. And it's really about understanding go-to-market strategy and the signals that really drive the business, and how to go to market, So it's really just looking at it from a growth lens, but in a way that is looking at not just internally, but also externally, looking at your signals. And that is on Substack and on LinkedIn.
That's
So I'm really
fantastic.
excited about it. Yeah, yeah.
And other ways to find you, besides searching
Sure.
you up on
On
Substack. Where
LinkedIn.
can folks get in touch with you? Maybe work with Wanjo, but get some more of
Yeah,
this
so
wisdom.
LinkedIn is great. Monica Wright. I also have monicawright.com that will send you wherever you need to go. And I have some portfolio stuff and some other stuff there. But LinkedIn is probably the best place to find me, really. I used to say
Awesome.
Twitter. I don't say that anymore, sadly. But it
Twitter's become a whole different thing
was
in
such a
so
good
many
thing.
ways.
Yeah, I miss it. But
Me
it's a
too.
good thing it got off my radar because I spent a lot of time on Twitter back in the day.
Uh, there
Yeah,
is that. There is that.
yeah, of
Oh gosh. Well, thank you, Monica Wright.
course.
Everybody.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Monica, for taking this time
Of course.
with us. Thanks for thinking this stuff through and sharing your thoughts. Thanks to all of you for taking time with us today to learn a little bit more. We'll catch you on the next episode, and everybody take care.